Parks are essential infrastructure, supporting economic development, public health, and resilience in fast-growing communities.
Parks can advance equitable development, connect neighborhoods, and expand access to trails and green space.
Cities need a strong national voice to help shape policy and funding for parks, and that's exactly what City Parks Alliance provides.
City Parks Alliance helps cities like ours navigate funding opportunities and understand the partnerships needed to bring big projects to life.
Through the Alliance, local leaders can connect with peers across the country, learn what's working, and bring proven solutions back home.
Join the Alliance and be a part of a group project committed to building great parks that support great cities.
Conference guests, please welcome to the stage Happy Haynes, City Parks Alliance Board Chair.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. Okay, I just want to make sure you're there. Thank you. It's great to be here with all of you again. How many of you are having a marvelous time here at Greater and Greener? I got a chance to get out today, and it was just fantastic. So thanks to our hosts for such a great time. And I saw in the video about our project a lot of familiar faces of folks who rolled up their sleeves on Saturday morning in the hot Texas summer sun and joined our volunteer service day. This is one, yeah, give them a shout out. This is one of my favorite traditions at Greater and Greener. It's so good to get out and get dirty and be reminded right in the moment of why we do this work. If you weren't able to join us on Sunday, you can see from these photos how much fun we had at Chestnut Pocket Park in East Austin. Fun is a very big part of it. We accomplished a lot together, replacing aging play equipment and sprucing up community spaces in this beloved local park. Our efforts helped improve safety and play value for the 4,000 local residents who use this lovely little park. Thank you to all of our extraordinary volunteers. We are also so very grateful to Landscape Structures for their many years of sponsorship of the Volunteer Service Day, including a generous donation of play equipment. Whirlix, yeah, give them a shout out. And Whirlix, we appreciate you so much for being there to help guide the playground assembly. Because while we're all about parks, most of us don't know a thing about how to connect those pieces together. And last but not least, a big thank you to the Austin Parks Foundation. There they are. I have to do this because Jesus said we have to do it at least once. So we thank y'all for the many months of facilitating and supporting the event at Chestnut Pocket Park. And I will say, you know, sometimes it's the teeniest little parks that have the biggest impact, and you got a chance to witness it firsthand. So one more big round of applause for all of our volunteers who helped out that day. And now on to another one of my favorite parts of Greater and Greener traditions, our Mayor's Forum. As many of you know, for more than a decade, City Parks Alliance has led a nonpartisan coalition of mayors who support our federal advocacy efforts and lend their voices to our efforts to have parks recognized as vital city infrastructure. Thank you to all of our mayors in the Mayors for Parks Coalition. And to all of the members who have helped recruit them, we can't do it without you. And if your mayor is not part of the coalition, please reach out to us so that you can join in an effort to get more mayors on board. We have, before we call up our mayoral panel, I want to recognize a couple of other mayors who are with us at Greater and Greener. Mayor Ryan from Buffalo is here. And Mayor Cha from Montreal West has been with us. Thank you so much throughout the... Our Mayor's Forum today is about the role of city leadership in bringing together the various partners and sectors that can use parks to build more vibrant, resilient, and equitable cities. As we heard during yesterday's plenary and in our panel discussions throughout this week, cities are facing a tough reality right now with less federal funding and changing policy priorities. This all comes at a time of rising environmental threats and increasing social and political disruption. Fortunately, we have some committed, innovative mayors out there looking for and leading on ways to use parks as sources of solutions to these big challenges in our cities. And we are really lucky to have many of those mayors with us here today. As I mentioned, 5 mayors, that's extraordinary to spend their time with us. And we have a few mayors here today to share their vision and ideas for new funding models to build and maintain urban park systems. Before we hear from these mayors, I'd like for all of you to hear from Landscape Structures. Yes, I'm saying their name again because they are everywhere when it comes to Greater and Greener and our city's parks. Their sponsorship made it possible for our 2026 Mayor's Forum, so give them a hand. Thank you, Landscape Structures, for your commitment to the City Parks Alliance and for providing more places for our children to play. It's my great pleasure to welcome David Smith, who is the Senior Vice President of Landscape Structures and my fellow City Park Alliance board member, to come up and get this forum started. Now, I hear tell that David is a 3rd generation in Landscape Structures and that he was found on a slide before he could walk. David.
Thank you for the kind words, Happy. It's an honor to be here today, this afternoon, with you and with our mayors who are here. And on behalf of all 850 employee owners, we're 100% employee owned at Landscape Structures. We are extremely proud to be longtime partners with the City Parks Alliance and honored to sponsor this 2026 Mayor's Forum. And I'm also honored to serve on the board with the Alliance. It's a privilege to be with so many leaders who are reimagining what parks can do for our cities and for the people who benefit from them. At Landscape Structures, we believe, first and foremost, that play is life-changing. For more than 50 years, we've worked alongside professionals like you to create spaces that strengthen communities, inspire connection, and improve the quality of life for everyone. Together, we've seen firsthand that parks are far more than amenities. They are gathering places, catalysts for healthier neighborhoods, and essential pieces of resilient, thriving cities. We heard from Eric this morning in that amazing session how playgrounds and parks are critical social infrastructure. I was so inspired by those messages. That's why we at Landscape Structures believe that play is never just about the stuff. It's not about a collection of equipment. It's an invitation to explore, to connect, to imagine, and to build relationships across generations and across all abilities. And because we believe that play is for everyone, inclusion is woven into everything that we do. We know that when people of all ages and all abilities can fully participate, that parks become more welcoming, more vibrant, and more impactful for the communities that they serve. As park innovators and decision makers, you have the opportunity to shape spaces that influence not only today's residents, but generations to come. And that mission aligns perfectly with ours because every day we strive to transform the landscape of play and to create the most captivating play spaces in the world. Thank you for the work that you do and for the partnership you continue to build with organizations like ours. Together, we're proving that great parks don't just reflect great cities, they help to create them. And now I'd like to play a short video, and then after that, I will introduce our panel moderator. Go ahead and play the video, please.
What is a playground, really? Is it a structure? A destination? And is it a playground if I'm not there? If it feels out of reach? Or it's made for some, but not all? If someone like me, my body, my unique self, wasn't included in the design from the start, is that a playground? Maybe, just maybe, a playground isn't a thing at all. Maybe a playground, the kind that was designed with and for everyone. The kind that starts with who instead of what. Maybe that kind of playground is more than a place. It's a symbol of me, of all of us, of belonging.
I hope you enjoyed that. It's a powerful reminder that the best parks and public spaces that you all create don't just invite people in, but they ensure that everyone belongs once they arrive. Now it's my honor to introduce my fellow City Parks Alliance board member, Carol Coletta. Carol will be the moderator of today's panel with our mayors. She served as president and CEO of the Memphis River Parks Partnership, while on loan as a senior fellow at the Kresge Foundation, where she led the Reimagining the Civic Commons initiative. Her long and storied background includes leadership roles at the Knight Foundation, CEOs for Cities, and the Mayor's Institute on City Design. Carol is currently at the Bloomberg Center for Public Innovation at Johns Hopkins University, where she's researching how public space can launch the connections we urgently need to enable opportunity, equity, and trust. Please join me in welcoming Carol.
Thank you, David. While our panelists are assembling, I just want to thank David again and Landscape Structures for sponsoring the volunteer event, for sponsoring this panel, and for the wonderful David video that you showed that reminds us about access. And I know each of us in the room is committed to that value, and it's wonderful to be reminded of in such a charming way. So thanks, David. I'm really excited about this panel. The only job, I've had a lot of jobs. The only job I ever wanted was to be mayor.
Oh.
And so I honor
This can be a counseling session.
no, I honor the service of mayors, I think higher than any others, because these people have to go to the grocery store and run into constituents, unlike, people in Washington. So I admire you very much. And we've got three of the best to talk to us today. So I'm really excited. Yeah. Let me do brief introductions of them, and then we'll jump into our conversation. First, I want to introduce Mayor Kirk Watson. He was first elected mayor of Austin in 1997, winning praise for his transformative environmental and economic development initiatives. He returned for more, brain damage, to Austin City Hall.
He ain't very smart.
Yeah. In 2023, he's now in his third term as mayor after serving in the interim 13 years in the Texas legislature. So he has a great background and dedication to public service. He's also the founding dean of the Hobby School of Public Affairs at the University of Houston. And he told me to tell you, thank you for all the sales tax and liquor taxes that you have left behind.
I understand some of y'all spent some sales tax money on liquor last night, so thank you.
He's very grateful. Mayor Maddie Parker is also in her third term as mayor. When she was first elected mayor of Fort Worth in 2021, you were the youngest mayor at that time and the first millennial to lead a major American city. Your tribe.
Yeah, I think we have some millennials in the audience.
Yeah, your tribe.
Okay, good.
They're taking over the world. Mayor Parker created Good Natured, I love that, a Fort Worth green space initiative to add 10,000 acres of open green space to Fort Worth by 2028. Mayor Parker is co-chair of the National Mayors for Parks Coalition. Thank you so much.
For having me. Appreciate it.
And if you've been around cities and mayors and parks for a number of years, you cannot not know Mayor Knox White, who's now in his 31st, if my math is right, 31st year as mayor of Greenville, South Carolina. Yeah. So who in the room has been to Greenville? Hands? People been to Greenville? Yeah. Okay.
Good.
If you've been there, you know that the city of Greenville was really redefined by Falls Park, the park you built that is absolutely in the heart of the city. And it is such a great payoff in terms of the goal that Mayor White set to make his city the most beautiful, livable, and welcoming city in America. And just a major part of that strategy is to invest in parks, trails, and green space, notably, again, Falls Park in the heart of downtown, Swamp Rabbit Trail, which may be the greatest name for a trail ever. Swamp Rabbit, I love that. And the new Unity Park, which was his commitment after Falls Park was such a great success in the heart of downtown to build Unity Park to achieve equitable outcomes in the city. Very impressive. So help me thank our mayors for joining us today. All right. I'm going to start with the softest ball question you will get all month. And that is, I want you to tell me about your favorite park and why it's special to you. And Mayor Watson, I want to start with you.
It's hard to pick a favorite, but I would say my favorite is the Butler Hike and Bike Trail that runs around Lady Bird Lake. It is now, because of the boardwalks that have been built and the different access points, it is about 10 miles. It has over 2 million people go down to it every year. I have loved it since we first came to Austin, and it was a place that you exercised, you saw people. It was a place of solace. When something bad happened in life, you'd go down and sit on one of the benches. It's named after the Butlers. Roy Butler is a former mayor of Austin and was actually the mayor when the decision was made to build that trail, and deserves a lot of credit for that, and his wonderful wife, Ann, who is still alive and really was the push behind putting more money into it, and so that'd have to be my favorite spot.
Yeah, that was hard to beat.
Yeah.
And it really defines Austin in so many ways.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's in my opinion, it's kind of, I often refer to downtown as being the living room of the entire community, and that is we can sit on our front porch and look out at that beautiful Lady Bird Lake and that hike and bike trail.
Yeah, hard to beat. Mayor Parker?
Yeah. I think for me in Fort Worth, it would be Trinity Park. You know, we are home to over 100 miles of trail system. I'm a runner. That's probably how I survived the job that I'm currently in. And to be in Trinity Park, you forget that you're in a major U.S. city, right? There's so much to see there in nature. Our Parks Department, I think Joel McElhaney's here somewhere. Shout out to Joel and his team. They do a fantastic job making sure it's maintained, but it's still in its natural scape. And there's Dream Park in the middle of it. You have Mayfest every single year, but most importantly, you can just have a sense of peace and solace that's in that space and feel safe and beautiful. So for me, it's probably Trinity Park.
It's interesting, we talk so much about activation of parks, but you both have mentioned solace.
Yeah.
And you know, the calm and solace that comes from being in nature in the city, which I think is a beautiful thing. We have to remember that activation is needed, but not always. There need to be those peaceful places, particularly for people living in cities.
Well, and I often think adults play differently once you get to adulthood, right? And while I guess you can get on the equipment, maybe frowned upon if it's ages 8 to 12, but you know, for us to get out in the outdoors and just be a part of nature, especially in a large urban environment, is so important to our kind of the ability to reset and go back into life.
Yeah.
And so for us in Fort Worth, I think we've tried to embrace that to the extent that we can.
Yeah, very much so. Mayor?
Okay, I'm glad to meet this mayor because Austin was an inspiration to us many years ago, 20 plus years ago, because when you have a community that maybe you're not sure if people will accept these kinds of things. We came to Austin 20 plus years ago to see the trail along the Lady Bird Park, to see it in person. And at that time, we forget about this, 25 years ago, there weren't very many cities in America that had walking and bike trails. It was just not done. But Austin was an early one, and so we came and found some good inspiration in doing that. And then beyond that, just the whole idea of taking a bold step. If you're going to do something, do it big and do it bold. And so with that inspiration, we did some great parks. You see, we're showing some pictures there. So we took this waterfall that was in 1888, was a big deal in the city. But in the 20th century, the river became polluted. The entire area was forgotten. And in 1960, they the highway department put a 4-lane highway on top of the waterfall. You can feel free to boo on that, by the way. Can you believe that? And that's what. But the river was such a negative, and it remained there for 40 years. So it was great to come to a place like Austin and see that you could do something totally out of the box, and maybe people will accept it. So anyway, long and short is we were able, after much controversy, to spend about $18 million to build a park around a waterfall most people in Greenville had never even seen before. They'd never seen this, but we did it, and that was the result. Falls Park was created and opened in 2004 and became the very centerpiece of Greenville, South Carolina. And it remains that day. So now it's condominiums and hotels and millions of dollars, $200 million in investment around it. So we enjoyed that so much, the river, the falls, and taking a step like that. 10 years later, went up the river and took an area that was also abandoned and deserted and forgotten, which is kind of a common theme in some of these parks and trails. And just about a quarter mile up the river, not very far, but it was the river, you couldn't even see the river, it's covered with vegetation. Junkyards, empty warehouses, et cetera. We took this area and brought in the neighborhood, had a neighborhood planning process that lasted 5 years, predominantly African-American neighborhood around it, because back in the past there had been a segregated park in this area, small segregated park. The neighborhood remembered that. There's quite a history there. We brought everybody to the table. How can we recreate and reimagine this area? And we did that with the neighborhood participation. So I'll show you what it looks like today. Beautiful Unity Park. And so we took a formerly segregated park and made it what it is today. But it has playgrounds, spray park for kids, great green space. It has a 10-story observation tower, by the way, which you can't see in this picture, because the neighborhood wanted a signature attraction like we had the suspension bridge on Falls Park. So we gave them something like that too, which is a beautiful 10-story observation tower. But it just goes to show if you have some ability to reimagine what a place might look like, you can do something like that.
True.
And people love it and embrace it.
You know, it's interesting you talk about coming to Austin and learning from Austin. I think that's what we've all been doing the last 3 days, and happy to do that and learning from each other. You know, it's interesting. There's nothing more powerful than travel.
That's right.
To get a group of people, leaders, to decide their city has to be better. And that's really interesting. I did not know the origin story on your work. Let me, we were talking this morning with Eric Kleinenberg spoke, and talking about all the goods that social capital and social connections that result from being in parks, all the ills that can correct. And you know, when talking about parks, you can justify parks in a lot of different ways. You can say they increase climate resilience, they advance equity and inclusion, they make the nearby real estate more valuable. You were talking about that earlier, Mayor White. They bring neighbors together, they strengthen social connections, give people relief from the stress of daily life, they teach us how to live together, improve health, create economic impact. All of those are reasonable results from parks. But I'm wondering, as mayor, which of those arguments resonates most with you and your legislative bodies? You know, if you come in and make an argument for a park or park funding.
Well, I think more broadly in Fort Worth, this is language I think that I have found to be most impactful with all audiences. It's about quality of life. And all of us live in communities and neighborhoods by choice if you can. And you care about where your kids are being raised, where you're building your businesses, where you're spending your time. And whether you care about climate resiliency or you care about your kids having a soccer field next door, I don't really care what your reason is. I care about building a high quality of life city for all people in my community. And so the initiatives around 10-minute walk to park are important because it's a reminder that every child, I specifically like to talk about kids because typically most adults will neutralize their politics just for half a second to care about kids and the future of America. And you say our children deserve an environment in which to be raised where they have a high quality of life. And you cannot have a high quality of life, in my humble opinion, without access to beautiful parks and outdoor space, right? You just can't. And fortunately, I would say the timing of my election in 2021, despite the fever pitch of our politics, which hasn't gotten any better, unfortunately, and now in 2026, people do care about outdoor space. And what's fantastic, coinciding with the public caring, you started to see the private sector also care, and that parks are also economic development. And so encouraging those policies and procedures within a framework at the City of Fort Worth, both through Good Natured and the other things we're working on with Green Print through the Parks and Recreation Department. We coordinate closely with Tarrant Regional Water District and their recreational master plan. All of these are moving towards this effort of all the things you mentioned are so important, but if I've lost you about fancy policies, just do care about quality of life. And typically people would all agree with you and they want to be a part of that. And then the last asterisk is the beautiful thing about outdoor space and parks, and it's reflected in David's remarks about volunteering here in the city of Austin. Everyone can be a part of that.
Yeah.
And I was telling Kirk yesterday I had the opportunity to ride a bike through Peace Park with my son and his cousins and get muddy and swim in the creek, and I noticed the Peace Park Conservancy, right? That's right. Just $1 here, $1 there. That supports things, right? That is so meaningful for everyone, no matter who you are, to feel a part of your outdoor space and your park system, which I think is oftentimes we look over that as those of us as policymakers, and sometimes that's what it's really all about. You want to make sure everyone feels connected to their place and where they call home.
Yeah. Mayor White, what's the argument that most resonates for you and your legislative body?
Well, I'm glad Mayor Park had mentioned quality of life, because that's kind of the main focus too. But I get so frustrated when we all come from cities that are growing at a historic pace, bigger populations. So I'm going to bet you that growth issues are what's on your mind and what's on your mind all the time. So how do you manage growth? And it gets frustrating when people talk about the traditional infrastructure, like we need to build more roads and that kind of thing. We've all heard that kind of thing. And that's really a dead-end kind of answer. I mean, the real answer for quality of life real answer to growth, rather, is to balance it with good quality of life focus. So green spaces and parks, sort of the hidden secret, I think, of dealing with growth, is the reason we build parks and green space and trails. So you can have a very vertical city, very fast-growing place, but down on the ground level where people live, you have good quality of life. You have the trails, you have the green space, and those are so critically important. They've always been important, but they're more important now than ever in a fast-growing community. Awakening people to make that connection, I think, is one of the most important tasks we have.
Yes. I just to follow up on one thing you said. You said, you always hear, we need more roads. Who's knocking on your door more forcefully? People advocating for roads or people advocating for parks?
Two too many always
yes,
on roads.
You.
I'd like to say in the larger county, we hear a lot about roads. In the city, the folks maybe who are more in tune, that it's more understanding that quality of life is what it's really about. Maybe they're asking the wrong questions, what I'm saying. The real answer is something like, it's quality of life.
Got it.
And however you want to define that.
What about in Austin?
Well, I think what you're hearing is the same is true in Austin as well, and that is parks are the one thing that everybody may be shooting at that target from a different angle, but they all have their reason to be in love with the green space and the parks. And it reminded me as I was listening to Mayor Parker just now, you know, the old story about the people trying to describe what an elephant looks like, right? You know, the blind people trying to say, and it's all whatever they're touching. You're coming at it from different angles, different approaches, but that makes it almost a universally loved kind of thing. And so then the question becomes is how do you do it so that everybody finds that love? For example, we just opened in the past, I guess 2 weeks now, a new park in downtown Austin. And it's a park that's on Waterloo Greenway. We call it the Waterloo Greenway, and it's the confluence, which is down right by the hike and bike trail that I was talking about a minute ago. It's Waller Creek. And Waller Creek is named after the first mayor of Austin, and he was before me. Edwin Waller, who actually laid out the city. And to the mayor's point about taking something that was kind of decrepit and falling apart, it had not been taken care of. And so working with a conservancy, Waterloo Greenway, we've now created both at the top of the park up by the University of Texas and now down here at the southern part. And we're going to accept a check, I think this week. I'm going to a deal for Palm Park that attaches to the Waterloo Greenway. The point of me bringing that up is it's an unbelievably successful new park in the midst of our downtown when you're surrounded by all these tall buildings. And what's amazing about it is everybody's for it. Everybody's for it, and there may be a lot of different reasons for it, but everybody's for it. And that is, so it's one of those things that it becomes an easy sell, but you always have to figure out how do you want to go about doing it so that you can maintain it and keep it so that you maintain the quality of life in a way that it'll be there 30 years from now.
Yeah.
Can I give another kudos to Austin? About 15 or 20 years ago,
you can do that all
visit
you
Austin,
want.
but you may have been mayor, 15 years ago or something?
No, I was mayor in 97.
I knew you, yeah. I did it straight through. You took some time off, and that must have been kind of fun.
You went to the Texas Senate. I'm not sure that
Yeah, I'm not tired of that
Well,
one.
maybe so. But one of your colleagues in the city at that time said, I want to show you something. And she took me off campus during a conference and showed me Waller Creek.
Yeah.
And here we are in the middle of the high-rise buildings that are being built even then. And down below, there was just a creek. It wasn't even a river. It was just a creek right there. And she walked me from one end to one end. I wish I knew her name, but she was part of a group, I guess, who saw it and said, one day, this could be something we could build around. I'm not sure I believed her, though. It was just a creek running through a city. In most places, they would have covered over the creek, probably.
Well, and one of the great things about it is it's also a flood control project. So up at the northern part, we've had the ability to build what we need to do to control flooding, but it also helps with the running of the water. Mm-hmm. And in 1998, when we were doubling the size of the convention center, and for those that have looked, there's a big hole because we're now again doubling the size of the convention center. The more things change, the more they stay the same. But when we did that, we also we had a venue tax election in 98, but as part of that venue tax, we put a small amount into planning and trying to take care of Waller Creek. So that's been going on for some time. Yeah. So the great success, and I give the Waterloo Greenway and our Parks Department and others a lot of credit for doing that. It's one of those things that you have to stay after, but now we have two, I guess is the best way I'd say it, two brand new parks in the downtown area tied to this creek, and before it's over, it will be one continuous beautiful park through our downtown.
Yeah, it is a magnificent asset.
It's amazing.
I just want to note something. I've got three mayors. I can't call you all mayor. Mayor Watson said, how do you do it where everybody finds that love. And I love that line. I think that's what we all strive for, right? We're trying to make these places where everybody can find that love, and very nicely put. I want to come back to this, a comment I made earlier about defining the brand. And it feels like very much that Falls Park began to put Greenville on the map in a way, right? You could, all of a sudden, you had a picture, a beautiful picture of this city that maybe you didn't know the name of this city beforehand, but all of a sudden the photographs were beautiful. They were spread everywhere. It was a hero story, and then you took down this decaying bridge and revealed this park. I'm just curious, how do you value that part of the park? I mean, people love it. They come there, they play, they have fun, but it also really feels like it's the city's brand.
Yeah, and more importantly, for the people who live in our city, I'm not sure, looking back, what was the brand before? What was their identity as a city? Now, I'm not sure what I could define it as, but now there's no question, no doubt about it. For everyone in the community, it's the waterfall and the park around the waterfall and all the green space, reflected in the economic development, but reflected in kind of community pride. So it becomes that first place everybody takes friends and visitors to when they come into the city. But the funny thing about that story, of course, is it used to be that way in the 19th century. It was the first place everybody went to. And so it's a reclaiming of the past at the same time. But yeah, it becomes an identity of a community, and I think the more things like that you can have, the better.
Yeah. Do you have that kind of place, Mayor Parker?
Yeah, I think for us in Fort Worth, it's the Trinity River, and as a body of water that connects people across our entire city. That's why our trail system is so significant. 100 miles of trail, all these neighborhoods across our community that now connect to the Trinity River, all the development that's now happening and turned facing the river, when for decades it was the opposite of that. And I think that when you see pictures of Fort Worth today, especially of our skyline, very seldom do you not have the Trinity River, unless it's the stockyards, right? But thinking about who Fort Worth is today and how fast we've growing, we still consider our green space and our Trinity River is the kind of the lifeblood of our city.
And it's, of course, it's really hard to imagine Austin without Lady Bird Lake and the trails around it. I mean, it's like.
But you know what, I completely agree with that, but I would also add, from the standpoint of identity, Barton Springs Pool and the role that it has played forever in Austin and before it was Austin. But the role it continues to play now. And in addition to that, Zilker Park, we brag that we're the live music capital of the world. And Zilker Park, every year we have the ACL Fest. And it's part of the music. But I remember when I first came to Austin in 1981, having grown up in Mattiestown, we ended up in Austin for 1 year. I was going to live here for 1 year. Liz and I were, and we were going to go back up to North Texas, we thought, and fell in love with Austin, and partly because we'd be down there on Auditorium Shores listening to music. And of course, if you go down to Auditorium, now it's called the Vic Mathias Auditorium Shores, again on that hike and bike trail we've been talking about, you'll see a statue down there at Auditorium Shores. It ain't Sam Houston. It's not Stephen Austin. It's Stevie Ray Vaughan. And now, yeah, right? And I remember, actually, I don't remember, I probably had more beer than I needed. I don't remember hearing him there, but I do remember him in the early days. But in addition to that, you have things like, I was just talking about the Waterloo Greenway. One of the things that was built into that was the Moody Amphitheater up at the north part of that. Again, a new place for there to be music. So I think you're asking a really good question about the identity of our cities sometimes gets defined by how we do these parks.
Yeah. I was just at ULI Europe, and there was a lot of talk about public-private partnerships. The European nations are really trying to figure out how to make that work. It feels pretty normal now in the states and in cities. And I'm curious, as a mayor, how do you feel about ceding some of your authority, some of your power to public-private partnerships? Do they help? Do they hurt? How do you feel about them? Mayor Parker?
Well, I think for Fort Worth Story, they've been imperative for our success long term. I'll give you two fantastic examples. One is the Fort Worth Zoo, which is one of the top zoos in the entire nation. And it's a very close public-private partnership with the Fort Worth Zoo and the board, notably run by Ramona Bass and the force of money and focus and fundraising she's created there that we could not have done on our own. But it is still an asset owned by the city of Fort Worth, and there's a very important partnership by the Fort Worth Parks Department to make that possible. Then more recently was the process we went through to have a new partnership with Brit, our Fort Worth Botanic Garden. And I think the proof is that we're about to open a new family garden at the end of this summer, made possible because of philanthropy and that partnership piece. The one thing that has been missing in Fort Worth that we're remedying right now is to have an overall conservancy effort that really is an umbrella for the entire park system to help complement the hard work the Parks Department is already doing. $25 million, by the way, just for open space acquisition in our last bond election, $185 towards parks, which is historic for our city. So how do you create more momentum? We're going to create a new Parks Conservancy for the city of Fort Worth. But because we have these really great examples that are specific in our city, we've seen that success and come along. Now, don't get me wrong, we're incredibly thoughtful as a city to get to those places. You know, the Fort Worth Zoo didn't happen overnight, neither did the Botanic Gardens partnership with Brit. But over time, our community has trusted the city of Fort Worth and specifically our Parks Department to do what's right for our residents and for our citizens, because at the top of our discussion, you know, around what elements are most important to people, when you're making a decision around a private-public partnership, you have to accept that all of those things are important, and to really think thoughtfully about those items when you're creating this partnership. But again, we all have limited resources. There are so many things happening. You know, Fort Worth continues to be one of the fastest-growing large cities in the country. Hard to believe we're now bigger than the city of Austin in population. We're the 10th largest city in the country. We cannot do it all by ourselves. So when you can leverage additional private sector dollars, and oftentimes philanthropy is very interested in that, right? Are you already doing a public-private partnership? Then they want to leverage additional funding. So I would tell our friends in Europe, it's a boom for your communities if you do it thoughtfully and you have the right partners at the table to do so.
Anything to add?
I think it's a necessity now. I do think if you look back in the history of parks in America, the first great public-private partnership for a park, in my view, was Millennial Park in Chicago. Kind of set a new standard with true participation. Anything over $100 million, you better get some private money. We raised about 20 to 25 million for Unity Park from private sector, individuals, foundations, but it was great to get the engagement in the community through that process. There is a good plus in sharing that story with others, again, foundations, individuals, and corporations. And we had a little competition. If I can tell this little quick story, we had, toward the end of the project, we had $1 million from Michelin. Greenville's the corporate headquarters for Michelin. And the Michelin folks were quick, $1 million for Michelin Green, which is naming rights for a big section of the park. Another one of our big companies that actually was not at the party, if you will, was BMW Automotive in our community, sort of stood back. And well, unfortunately, the president of BMW, German guy, lives in downtown Greenville. And about a year after we were into this process, he lives in downtown, he walks on the trails, he saw the construction going on in the park, and he went back to the office one day and he told me this story. And he said, the new park that's being built in downtown Greenville, it's just stunning, is what they've done, it's beautiful. We are a part of that, are we not? And his folks kind of looked, well, actually we took a pass on that, we did. So he called me and he told me that story. He said, now, we're going to be a big part of this. And then he said to me, how much did Michelin give?
Oh.
And I said, $1 million. And he said to me, well, we'll do better than that. So a few months later, we had the groundbreaking of a whole section of the park for BMW. And I didn't know it till this happened. He gets up there and announces the great contribution of BMW of $1.2 million.
I'll take it.
And I'll take it. So it's our little secret anyway.
That's great.
Yeah.
You're not keeping that secret very well.
Well,
It's the kind of competition you want.
I love it. Yeah, I don't have anything really to add, but I want to emphasize something both of the mayors said. One is, I think fiscal situations for municipalities and local government now are such that the word necessity is probably true. I don't think we can't sit up here and talk about how everybody loves our parks and you know, loves them to death in some instances because people want to use them, and also act like we have all the funds to be able to do that, including getting new parks and how you go about getting new parks. So necessity. But then what Mayor Parker said about the needing to be thoughtful about how you go about doing it. We've had real good success. I've mentioned Waterloo Greenway. The Trail Conservancy is the conservancy that helps us with the Butler Hike and Bike Trail. You heard Maddie talk about the Peace Conservancy. Those are all very helpful to our Parks Department. The Parks Foundation, which you saw was out there helping in the over the weekend. We've got all of those things working, but it has to be, we have a necessity people are going to have to accept. Some people that are kind of purist on the parks don't want to accept that, but they're going to need to accept that. And then we have to make sure if we're going to do it, though, we do it the right way.
Well, just talk about that for a minute. So what does it mean to be thoughtful? What are the checks and balances in those relationships?
Well, one of them, I think, is probably how you go about letting, how the uses of the parks, for example. If some people are managing those parks for you or managing the hike and bike trail in certain ways, do they, as a result of trying to raise the funds, to do the things they need to do, are they being thoughtful in terms of what the uses are so that you're not excluding other uses? Is there access for everybody? As Mayor Parker has mentioned, you know, these parks, they're for the entire community. And are you making sure that you have equitable access as part of it? And then I think you have to make sure that the job is getting done in terms of the upkeep and making investments in those parks in a way that adds to the park and doesn't create unintended consequences.
Well, and we're in an audience full of people that have to endure or lead community forums on a daily basis. It's the full contact sport of local government. And our Parks Department does a fantastic job. You have to deal with the dumbest of questions, the most intelligent of questions. You have to deal with the cyclists and the soccer moms. You have to do all of it. And our parks really are that convening place. And there's no better spot to see someone's, fist go up than if you start messing with what they think their park should be. And our Parks Department's half the ones that have to govern over that. And then to Kirk's point, when it does come a time where you're doing a public-private partnership, these wonderful people here, you're the ones that are kind of having to help sort through that, which is really difficult work. Yeah.
It brings up a question for me. Are there mistakes you've made or opportunities you've missed that you regret related to your parks and your trails and your green spaces?
I'll mention one, and everybody's got to keep it a secret. I rarely talk about my mistakes. So, but in 1997, I came into office, and this town was, we had a partisan fight going on. It wasn't Republican-Democrat, but it was as nasty as any Republican-Democratic fights, and it was environmentalists versus developers. It was the Sierra Club versus the Chamber of Commerce, the Real Estate Council versus the Save Our Springs Alliance, that kind of thing. And one of the things I came in and I said is, I want us to, in the most environmentally sensitive part of our community, which is southwest, over the Edwards Aquifer, and that feeds into Barton Springs Pool that I was just talking about, I want us to have an election where we're going to purchase, and I think we were one of the first in the country to do something of this magnitude. We put on a bond election $65 million of water bonds in order to preserve water quality and by the same token, preserve a big chunk of the hill country. The mistake, looking back on it, was that by using water bonds, we were more limited in what the uses could be of that land. So we've got, tens of thousands of acres now. And by the way, San Antonio started doing it, and there's been a lot of, and we're doing some trails, but it's not the kind of use that I wish we were doing. Here we are 25 or whatever years later. I wish we had better access. So our funding choice, which was it was a smart funding choice. It was where we had the funds, but it was all, and it preserved a lot of green space as a result. But it hasn't made them the parks that I would like to have today.
I think there's an issue that parks deal with now. Everybody in this room will understand this. It's something new that 20 years ago we wouldn't have talked about. And that is parks, when they're successful, give great return on investment, but also could give rise to gentrification issues, because oftentimes parks are in neighborhoods that were on the edges. And what do? You're trying to build a park, and yet now you're concerned about gentrification on the side. And I think a lot of people missed that for a long time. So back in we were fortunate that in our building of Unity Park in the traditional African American neighborhood it was in, we had neighborhood engagement from day one. And this goes back to 2018, I think it is. And early on in the meetings, we talked about that, had a frank discussion about you build this beautiful park, what's going to happen to the traditional neighborhood. And you could already see, by the way, some $1 million condos appearing in the neighborhood. We were fortunate to have that discussion early on. And early on, and this was just a stroke of luck, we realized that adjacent to our 60-acre park was another 5 or 7 or 8 acres also owned by the city on the edge of the park. Not in the park, on the edge of the park. And we were able, in 2018, to make a decision at that time, which was, okay, we're going to take all the edge property that we own, beachfront property in the future, and it is now, and we're going to put it aside for affordable housing and workforce housing. And we made that commitment, and today we have a number of these projects that are now, So they're coming out of the ground now, and the pledge was made, the promise was made, and the promise has been kept. So we literally we'll have $1 million condos all around, cheek to jowl, with really the largest footprint of workforce housing in our entire city. So we're proud of that. But we got a little lucky on that too. But that's an issue everyone deals with now.
Yeah. I mean, Fort Worth's made plenty of mistakes. I would just say, from a macro standpoint, we just didn't start the prioritization soon enough, right? When I took office in 21, this is still true today, we lose 50 acres per week to development. Literally paving paradise, and you have a sense of urgency we do right now with our good-natured framework in the city. It's not perfect, but it has now allowed our Parks Department and the priorities that they have in place to now be elevated across the entire city, which is vitally important to also bring along urban development at the same time, the same pace, and know where the city's priorities are. And that's incredibly important to me because I plan on raising my children and my grandchildren in Fort Worth, and I want our city to continue to be beautiful and greener and have more open space and parks in the future than even they have today. So it's just, we all have a sense of urgency right now in Fort Worth.
Yeah. I just want to do a time check with someone on team. I'm looking at a very short clock here. Is that right? Help me out. We have are you sure? Did someone say we
it just magically, now we're up again.
Okay, so I'm looking at, okay, they put 10 more minutes on the clock. Okay, good, yay. All right.
By the way, this never happens in an Austin City Council meeting.
We've been up here a long time. Serve dinner.
Are there,
serve dinner.
Yeah. Let me ask you, what is, Mayor White talked about it, but what's the most exciting, maybe all of you have spoken to this, but what's the most exciting park project that you have in the future of your city that you really would like to push on, or Parks Trails project?
Yeah, hard to choose one, so I'll give you two. First is the Fort Worth Nature Center and Refuge, which is a tremendous asset, over 3,200 acres in a growing, thriving urban environment with trail systems and a beautiful water tributary and so much to offer. And we're in the middle of a kind of a master planning process of understanding what that particular city asset needs to be. Is a public-private partnership appropriate? Is it not? What kind of assets would we need to raise for that? So that's incredibly important and a really special place in Fort Worth. And the second place would be Gateway Park. It's the same size as Central Park. Right now, about 600,000 people visit every single year. With our master plan developed fully out, over $140 million, we expect over 2.2 million people to visit Gateway Park, which is a tremendous asset. And it also sits in an important place in DFW, in the middle of all our communities, and also in East Fort Worth. So from an economic development perspective and a continuation of our parks development, I think those two spaces will be incredibly vital to the long-term success of Fort Worth's park system.
Will you be able to see them through, or is this something you get started?
Well, I've told many people this. All I really wanted to be was the Parks Board chair.
Oh.
And unfortunately, I became mayor first. But yes, and I think this is something, not all of us are mayor for 30 years or want to come back for brain damage round number 2. But something that sometimes, and I think this audience will appreciate this because all of you are public servants and you serve through multiple different administrations. And it's got to be frustrating, especially those of you that love what you do, to work hard under one administration that gets it and then the next one doesn't care. And so in Fort Worth, what we're working on, and Joel's a big part of this, I think he's going to present this afternoon, is creating systemic change within the city. So to directly answer your question, it won't matter whether I'm there or not to see them through, because we are creating a framework to make sure no matter who is in office, considers parks a priority, because we've created that framework across the city and it's been adopted by this council and future councils, which is so important in local government, because the whack-a-mole that sometimes happens when people take office, city councils take priorities, recessions happen, whatever it may be, your park system has to be a priority no matter who's in office, and that's very important to me. That's probably the city staffer, I was chief of staff before I became mayor, was so vitally important. So hopefully that can be true whether I'm in office at the time that the full Gateway Master Plan is complete or whether it's just getting started. Yeah.
But do you think you can lock in that, you believe you can lock in that sort of determination for the future?
You know, for instance, in our last bond election, we set aside $25 million just for Gateway Park to get us started on that beginning of the master plan, and really thinking thoughtfully around how to leverage that $25 million. The Nature Center is such a unique space because there's already private philanthropy right there on the diving board edge, ready to jump in with us if we can also demonstrate that we as a city have a better overall plan, but also an appreciation for the asset. We have the right leadership in place at the Nature Center and Refuge. Those are very important things to philanthropy. So that will be my next step, right? Once we finish that plan, is now I start knocking doors to raise money. And I know I can be successful. We've raised almost $50 million for Heritage Park in downtown Fort Worth. You mentioned corporations. It's sort of funny, that was not something that corporations in Fort Worth, I'm not sure in your cities.
Some communities, they don't do it.
But now they're starting to realize, oh, it's very popular. Let me write you a check for the park. So great, we'll take your money. We'd love to have it.
That's true.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
You know, this is part of a kind of a culture in the community. You asked us some time back about identity and brand and that kind of thing, and maybe that's what the mayor's speaking of. You want to lock it in, that that's your brand, that's your identity as a community, and, you know, woe to that person who tries to go in a different direction on parks and green space, if you've done a good job on that.
Yeah. Well, and I think the more corporate heads and mayors see other cities, right, that are becoming defined by their natural assets, then it's like, oh, wait, we have that opportunity too.
Yes.
We know what's special here. Any exciting projects in the future?
Oh yeah, we've
talked about Palm Park.
Probably my favorite is we broke ground just recently on an all-access park in southeast Austin that will be the first of its kind in our community, where it's all access. And it one of my initiatives as mayor is I call it Generation ATX, which is Gen ATX is my movement to make Austin the best place in America to be a kid. And one of the things that our research is showing both locally and nationally is a sense of belonging is fundamental to that. Well, third spaces like parks can really be that if we do them right. It's not just having the park though, it has to be what's in that park so that everybody has that sense of belonging. And for that matter, parents and grandparents and aunts and uncles and others that are going to be with those children. So that's, in my mind, probably the thing I'm most excited about right now.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Mayor White?
Well, I was already speaking before that about branding and such like that, but I think it just taking that and doubling down on everything we do. We're expanding the bike and walking trail system where we were inspired by Austin years ago, and now it's over 25 miles in all different directions, and people want that kind of thing and like that kind of thing. And every time we do projects these days, we always add the element in our master plan and on our land use plan. It's built into the land use plan now. You have to provide green space or have a conversation about green space in any project you do. And just the fact that everyone latches onto that as well these days. We're building a new conference center in our downtown, and we really did send the architects back to the drawing board because we said, you know, it's close to the waterfall, it's close to Foss Park. We want to bring the park into the convention center. And they were like, well, how do we do that? We said, you work it out. You push the center back a little more and you build a much grander entranceway that looks more like a park as opposed to an open plaza, which they had originally planned. So you know, it's getting that kind of thinking into the system.
Your cities are all southern cities. They are all getting hotter and hotter. What are you doing to mitigate heat?
Trees.
Lots of trees.
Plant some trees, people. Yeah. Right. We have a new tree ordinance in Fort Worth that we're very proud of. We're also holding developers to the line, and we're going to have a really fun process if they don't settle in the next few weeks, where the city council is the arbiter of a developer that decided to raise over 3 acres of beautiful mature trees. And rather than let them settle, they can come down to a public hearing before city council and try to make their case. That's the extreme version, right? But encouraging our residents and our businesses, any development, to have an appreciation for our tree canopy. We want our tree canopy to go up to 30%, if not more. A wonderful urban forestry and arborist team as well to help complement that. And we do that in Texas, where Texans, we love our private property rights. And then there's been plenty of times when the legislature has kind of picked on cities for going too far, and I respect that. But we have found most of the time when you really sit down with a developer, whether small or large, and make sure you're making the case, it's really important for their long-term success of whatever they're doing. So that's number one. And number two is really thinking about the next generation of development. What do I mean by that? So right now, we're in the process of developing the Trinity River Vision, Central City Vision, in cooperation with the Army Corps of Engineers. They're going to dig the channel, working with developers. You know, what does environmentally sensitive development look like that doesn't break the bank? And there's a lot of different ways to do that. We have a few people in the city. I'm sure Austin has these folks as well that are you're just lucky they work for your city. There's a woman named Dana Bergdorf, who's one of our assistant city managers, who's just a master. And I love sending Dana into a meeting because she will not say no. She will not say yes. She'll get what she wants out of the meeting. And she also happens to be an urban planner. And so you use that to your advantage. And yeah, it's hot in Texas, absolutely. But you can't avoid that, and you certainly can't change the way the climate is adjusting, but you can do what you can in your own city. And parks and development, green space development, LEED certified buildings as a city is incredibly important. Gardens, all those things have been for us something that has at least been a priority, and I think will long-term help our community.
Is there a sense now, I mean, trees used to, we used to think about it maybe as habitat, certainly as beauty. Are people, but it's been a long time since we thought about trees as shade.
Which is so weird.
Yeah. But it's true. But it feels like today shade is now
Yeah.
moving up in terms of priority.
Well, think about it. Most of this audience, I'm a millennial. We've got generations from all over the place. But I was a kid. You left the house in the summer at like 8 o'clock in the morning, and your parents did not want to see you again until it was dark. You spent your entire time on a bike, and you needed to be outside, and trees were sort of your friend. Returning back to that appreciation for nature in a way is so important. I know it sounds so simple, but you're right. I don't know how we got away from that from a policy perspective, and sometimes things just get busy, and it wasn't in code written, and so you allowed development to happen without the rules in place from a regulatory perspective that really did protect your community long term. So it's a great time to be an arborist in the city of Fort Worth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are the two of you, do you have formal initiatives around trees?
We followed all. I mean, Austin has a great model ordinance.
And I mean, I've mentioned it several times now, but if you haven't, everybody go to the confluence before you leave town, and you will see I'm not even sure what the right phrase is, but it's been reforested, if you will, all along that creek, and it is now the densest sort of, I don't know what the right word is, forest, if you will, in downtown Austin. And so as part of when we do these kinds of things, we do those. In addition, I know we've got Councilmember Ryan Alter here with us, sits on the Austin City Council as well. and he's been a big advocate, and so I need to call him out as a big advocate for in our parks, working to make sure we have shade structures, even if they're not shade trees, but so that you can continue to enjoy those parks. That's been one of his prime efforts as well. But yeah, we're very focused on how we increase the canopy. You know, it really is funny because I grew up the same way, riding bikes, and you know, we all became like old cows trying to find that one little bit of shade under a tree, you know, and I know how to find that, but we did get away from that in some way, and we got away at a time when we shouldn't have gotten away from it because of the change in climate, making it a part and parcel of everything we do so that we mitigate the damage that's being done by the success, if you will, of some of our cities.
Right.
And it's not anecdotal anymore. You can, we all have the data now. We all have the ability to do a tree cover study of every community, and you can actually, you know, quantify exactly where you're lacking, where you need to pick it up, and something you couldn't do 20 years ago, get the satellite photos and the such. So it's amazing what you can do if you're going to direct yourself to that.
Yeah. I happened to catch Arnold Schwarzenegger at his conference in Austria on climate. He said, we don't talk about climate change. We talk about pollution mitigation. We should talk about pollution mitigation. And everybody understands pollution. And it seems to me shade may be similar, right? Everybody understands shade.
Yeah.
They may not understand climate change, but shade we can talk about.
Yeah, well, maybe the Terminator's onto something, right? You just have to accept that rather than get into a political argument with someone, everyone is an environmentalist in your own way.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You care about clean water and clean air. You like shade. You like green grass. Okay, great. Let's just start there rather than have a debate about climate change. That'd be fantastic. No one has the brain damage willingness for that. So that, I agree, is very important. And you know, we've all learned from each other. You look across the country at different cities that are adopting different policies and using different language that works in their communities. It's usually your Parks Department folks that are coming up with that. Thank you very much. But that is how you lean in to create better change and less arguing about things that really we should probably all agree on.
Right.
So, yeah.
What's one challenge weighing on you that your parks and park staffs might help relieve?
Say that again?
All right. One challenge that may be weighing on you that your parks and your park staffs might be able to alleviate. In other words, they can help you solve a problem that you have now.
The first part of that question, I'm stuttering because the first part of that question is money. And I'm not sure how they help me with that. They're the ones asking me for it. And I see our parks director right over there.
Well,
but the number one challenge, I think, is, again, I'm going to come back to it. We've talked about the necessity of having other help, but the biggest issue that I think we're going to face in the immediate future with regard to parks, in fact, we're kind of going on having that debate in Austin right now, is money. And how do you get the money to do more for parks and even the parks we have being able to maintain those parks the way we want to do those. I'm going to flip your question a little bit, and I apologize for that, but I think our parks staff and our parks professionals, and both of these mayors have spoken to it already, they're the idea people and they're the people willing to get it done. But what happens too often is we don't have the resources to get it to them in a way that they can get it done. They can tell us the best way to get the shade. They can tell us the best places for the parks. They can tell us what we need to maintain it and become that thing that everybody loves and they find their love in it. The problem is resources, and so the question presumes that they, in a way, presumes that they can bring solutions that for things that I think are the biggest problem that we're going to face. And by the way, we just started talking about the heat and those kinds of things. We're at a critical point where we need to be doing some of these things, and I recognize the need to do them, but we're also at a critical point where we don't have the funding to do them, and we have a legislature that's even talking about making it harder to have the funding to do it. So I must admit I jumped ahead when I heard the first part of the question. The way that they solve problems for us, though, is every day they're doing the job. And when I'm hearing from people and somebody goes to one of the parks and compliments one of the parks, it's only because our Parks Department and our Parks Foundation and others are doing the job that we need them to do. And it is, as Maddie has suggested, if not just outright said, it is public service at its most basic, and it's where people feel the most love from their public service.
I think, creating a park and building a park is almost the easy part. The operations of maintenance expenses, that's the hard part. And I think some communities do jump ahead too far at one and forget about the other. But I think one of the greatest dangers in dealing with this topic is that there's a temptation by some cities to start nickeling, diming people at the park. And that has happened in some places. And that's a really bad idea, because if we lose the idea that a park is a public space, a place where everybody's welcome, everybody feels welcome, we lose everything. And so it's a good one to keep in mind.
Yeah.
It's my pet peeve about that aspect.
I think for us in Fort Worth, and our Parks Department is already trying to help be a resolution in this, is that to us, Parks and Recreation Department, and parks specifically, community centers, are public safety also. They're an opportunity for youth to feel more sense of belonging and get off the street and not join a gang. They're a sense of after-school programming, your park space, that when they feel safe, more community members will come to those spaces. And so we're in a little bit of a tussle right now with our Crime Control Prevention District Board over what is public safety dollars and what's not. We want to create a Parks Ranger program, right? Where you have, across the city, you have people that are more visibly known as Parks Rangers, and they're better trained, and they're ambassadors for your parks, and they can create that sense of belonging, because our crime rate continues to drive down, except for the youth between 16 and 21, young men especially, and they need a sense of belonging and space. And it's not a perfect solution, but we know that parks can be a part of that. So stay tuned in the next 6 months if Joel and I can figure that one out and convince our police officers what's it about. Yeah?
I love that. And of course, people you put in parks don't have the equipment cost, they don't have the training cost, they don't have the liability that, what a one-for-one police officer would have. I mean, it's a much more doable proposition if you believe, right, that they can provide that level of safety that intervening after the crime occurs doesn't provide.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Along those lines, since your safety's come up, making the park safe
is very important.
has to be something, people have to feel safe for them to be a meaningful third space and to be able to be all of those things that we talked about early in this conversation. And I think we're in a debate in Austin right now about how we go about doing that. Maddie and I were talking because she said that she had ridden a bike with her kid and others through Peace Park. Well, we just had this sounds odd, but look it up. We had the troll in Peace Park burned to the ground. And it was a beautiful, neat, Keep Austin Weird sort of statue in Peace Park. And it burned to the ground. And Maddie's first question to me was, and we don't know who did it. And Maddie's first question was, didn't you have cameras? No. And so there's a debate and a discussion going on about that. And I think we're going to have to make some decisions about how if we're going to put money into parks, they need to be safe.
Yes.
And so the debate we need to have it, but ultimately we got to come down in terms of safety in those parks.
Right. And yet parks can also contribute to safety, right?
Absolutely.
Well, they should be able to, but when you go to one of our parks in particular, you go and you park your car, and people want to knock out the windows of your car so they can steal what's in your car, and we don't have safety precautions set up that other cities do that catch people from doing that kind of thing. We're going to need to look at that.
Yeah, I get it. I've put cameras in parks. I want to, we only have a few minutes left, so I want to ask each of you, I mean, the people in this room want all mayors to commit to spending more money on parks. They want all mayors to love their parks, prioritize their parks, and when they have money, to spend money on parks. What advice would you give us to persuade mayors and local legislative bodies to do that, to support their parks with love, with words, with money, with resources, with policy, etc.? What do they need to say? What argument can we make to, I mean, you all start as supportive, but there are more people than you making decisions. What can they say? What can they do to make the case?
Well, it obviously depends on each of your cities, but let's say, you know, legislative bodies and also mayors or elected officials at a city level, city councils. Don't make the assumption they know what's going on, right? So going to meet with them, your city council members one-on-one, hey, these are the top 5 parks in your district. You know this is what's going on there, and this is what we're excited about. This is the amount of money that's being funded there, or this is the history of this park, or, you know, picking out a few, you know, those good ribbon-cutting moments that some elected officials just love, let them do that, right? Let them get a little bit of credit, because it doesn't really matter at the end of the day who gets the credit as long as the park gets built, which is incredibly important. Who are your allies? Not everyone's going to find this to be a priority. It's not because it's not important, it's just not the most important thing to them at the time. So find your allies on your city council. At a legislative level, it's been really important for us to celebrate those leaders at elected level that have helped support our park system. So we had Representative Nicole Collier help secure $100,000 for Sycamore Park. We asked her to come to city council with the big check like it was Price is Right and take pictures and be celebrated. That was a great moment so that when we go back to her in the future, she'll feel support. And then lastly, in Texas, right now, we're incredibly fortunate as a state. The Centennial Fund was passed 2 legislative sessions ago, and then a resolution by voters, $1 billion through Texas Parks and Wildlife, and then in conjunction with the foundation, our city does whatever we can to partner with that agency. And even so far as to work on a new state park in the city of Fort Worth and celebrate them wherever possible. So those are just some ideas. It's not perfect. You will all leave meetings frustrated, and you will all leave meetings uplifted. It just depends on the circumstances. And then the asterisk lastly is, and I don't know how to do this well, I still struggle with it, and we're gonna face it this next session or next budget cycle in Fort Worth with a budget shortfall, but how do you prevent catastrophic cuts to parks? Because in my opinion, when you make a $2 million, a $10 million, a $15 million cut to your parks department, it takes decades to come back from that. Yeah. Decades. Yeah. Because as was mentioned up here, the unsexy part of the park, once the ribbon is cut, you have to have operations and maintenance dollars towards those parks, right? You have to keep them safe and beautiful for people to use them. And those are the first dollars that typically get cut. And then people are frustrated long term. So that's just I'm struggling with that candidly on how do you make sure you preserve that funding at all costs as a part of an overall strategy on a budget in a city that's growing and has other competing priorities.
There are going to be people in this room who really, really want to take you home with them. But we're going to make that case personally. Mayor White?
Same question?
Same question.
Same idea. I'll take a little different tack. Now, what I'm about to say stays in this room, okay? But it's something I do think about. I can't think of a major project of the nature of a bike and walking trail system. Again, we got about 25 miles in Greenville. Everybody loves it now. We have these 2 magnificent parks that are kind of the heart and soul of the community. There are people out there who opposed all these things. They fought it tooth and nail. And sometimes I do wonder when they're on that trail, when they're visiting the park, and they see hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of all kinds of people, very diverse, enjoying the park. And when they see those hotels and condos and apartments and all the economic development that is spun off, what do they think? That maybe they missed that. And that's the economic impact beyond just the joy and the identity of these projects brings to a community, but the economic impact is so clear, so obvious everywhere in the country, certainly not just Greenville, South Carolina. And you can see so many examples. And I can pick up a paper almost any time, anywhere in the country, and find some community that's looking at building a bike and walking trail system or expansion somewhere. And there's still those landowners who don't want it on their property until they sell that property for $1 million later on, because its value went up and everything. But the jury is out on these things. It's just a matter of getting out in the community, getting out in the world, if you will, and seeing the economic impact of these kind of projects, which then in turn mean bigger coffers for property taxes and things like that. So it's beyond me, but those folks are still out there. Just
do you have a list that you keep in your wallet?
I do. I know who they are. But the impact is palpable, and I think it should give great heart to all of us who are trying to promote this in other communities too.
Yeah, good. Mayor Watson.
Just briefly, what I would say is work to create new and different constituencies. Remember how we started this? We talked about all the different ways people love a park. Too often, we get ourselves into kind of a tunnel vision. This is why I love the park, and therefore you should fund this park because this is why I love the park. And we become a little too pure sometimes about how we approach it. If what we do is we find out why somebody else might be for it, you might have constituents, different constituents that also want that park. It may be somebody that's very involved in child care and focused on kids, and they would play a role. It might be somebody that if you would just agree to have as part of that a senior rec center as part of that park, now you've got seniors that are also helping with it. The park that's there at Auditorium Shores, by the way, it's also called Butler Park, different Butler. But that park was asphalt. It was a parking lot back in 1997. But the arts community wanted a performing arts center, and so what we said is we will let Palmer, what was the old Palmer Auditorium, by the way, Lester Palmer, who was mayor of Austin, but from Fort Worth, Lester Palmer, that we had built that in 1961. And what we decided to do to get a performing arts center was, I said to them, well, if you will raise the money to retrofit that, the city will make that available. But that was on parkland, which meant we had to have an election. And I told the supporters, I said, I know a little bit about elections. I don't think you SOBs, and that was symphony, opera, and ballet. I don't think you guys can win that election. But what we said to the public is, if we do this, then what we're going to do is we'll actually tear up this asphalt and build that into a real park. Now I got the parks folks really cheering on the ballet. And so I think in this day and age where funds are always going to be limited and land is getting more and more expensive and maintenance is more and more expensive, it's going to become important for us to not always find the purest of parks, and I don't mean that in a negative way, but find the constituency base that we can put together that has people coming at it maybe from different points of view, and you get more support for it.
Love it. Help me thank this fabulous panel. Woo!